What's good, y'all? Welcome to my review for the final episode of Uzumaki, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, and I'm recording this at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Yay! So hopefully this review should be coming out, within a reasonable time frame today, this time. But, yeah, man, final episode. As you guys may have noticed or saw, if you guys are paying attention to the credits or to Swimpedia or whatever that Twitter account is called, that posts the cast list and, the staff list, kind of, for the Uzumaki episodes, you would have known that the original studio that worked on episode 1 came back and worked on episode 4. So the entire original team from episode 1 came back for the final episode. As I mentioned this in my review, I want to say of episode 2, this might have been episode 3, and probably protective video, you mentioned, apparently people that were, in on that knew, that were, on the inside knew that apparently episode 4 would have been closer to the quality of episode 1. And yeah, the man wasn't lying, man. This episode looked, you could almost tell instantly that the original team was back, except the Chinese team that worked in episode 2 and 3 were working on the final episode. Well, I would probably, and if you guys saw the animation of this episode, minus one little minor blunder with the animation, which, as they mentioned, as that WB representative or producer mentioned, the options they had with Uzumaki, like I said, it was scrap the whole thing, release just the first episode, and, not bother with the rest of it, or release it all, warts and all. Well, we definitely saw one of those warts in this episode, man. But honestly, it wasn't even that bad. I think of all the places they could have picked to cut corners, I think they probably picked the best option to do so. Honestly, I do hope Uzumaki does get a Blu-ray release in Japan, because as you guys know, for anime Blu-rays, the studio always usually goes back, touches up some cuts, adds some extra, and touches up a lot of the cuts so they look better, and stuff that's off model, they now put it back on model and all that jazz, and touch up the animation a bit for the Blu-ray release. I hope Uzumaki gets one. Ninja Kamui did get a Japanese Blu-ray release. It even has the English dub on the disc, so that's cool. We still have no word of an American Blu-ray for Ninja Kamui yet, but there's a Japanese Blu-ray with a dub. So there you guys. If you guys want to get Ninja Kamui on Blu-ray, free of all the fucking ghosting and everything, man, go get the Japanese Blu-ray. It has a dub on the disc. So hopefully Uzumaki gets that same treatment. That also gets a Blu-ray release, man, and they manage to touch up some of the animation, touch up some of the bad cuts, and make it look better for the Blu-ray release. We'll have to wait and see on that, man. I hope this does get a Blu-ray release, man. But yeah. Like I said, they picked, I think that of all places to cut corners, they definitely picked a good spot to do it so, man. And it wasn't even that jarring. I noticed it a little bit. I was like, wait, what the hell? It wasn't until other people started pointing out and I checked for myself and really paid attention. I was like, yep, that is a still drawing with zero animation of it towards of the two characters falling. But hey, it didn't look that bad, to be fair. And yeah, man, this was a phenomenal episode, man. Interesting ending, I would definitely say. The ending of this show kind of reminded me, felt very reminiscent of a lot of elevated horror movies, if you guys have watched a lot of the ones from A24 and such. It had that just same vibe to it with the ending, man, I noticed. But yeah, man, without further ado, let's just jump right into the actual episode. And honestly, almost instantly you can tell that the original team worked on this episode, man, because the animation from the opening section with the car, man, it looked amazing. I swear to God, the key animation and just the overall just drawings in general, man, were a bit more detailed than they were in the 2 previous episodes. I could be wrong, and my mind's just fucking with me, but I swear the character designs and the drawings, like I said, were a bit more detailed. There was more detail in the clothing and everything, man. It just looked a little bit more detailed than it did in the last 2 episodes. I could be wrong on that one, but either way, man, this already looked fantastic. But anyway, we have a news crew coming in there. They're coming in there to, I guess, report on the massive storm the massive storm going on in Kurouzu town, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is, of course, obviously the town where the show takes place. They get out there, man. We get this really nice 3D panning shot as they get out of the tunnel, where they are then met with a tornado that that flips their car over. It's seemingly everyone else besides the female reporter, Chie, dies. We don't see them ever again. We don't know if they lived or died or whatever the case may be, but she was able to get out of the car. Or rather they all are dead, and she is the only survivor from the crash. A nice little touch of detail that was kind of cool, where you can actually, while she's breathing out, you can see her breath turning into spirals. I thought it looked really cool. She mentions about this, is my breath turning into spirals? So she reaches the town, man. She sees the tornado, she sees the destruction in front of her, along with one of the tornadoes in the background, man. As she slowly starts to venture out before meeting up with Kitty. Kitty is with her little brother, and we also find that there is this gang going around, the Butterfly Gang, who was basically Storm. I forget if there was like a Spider-Man villain that can like control tornadoes. I think it was like maybe like Whirlwind or Windman, or I swear to God, there's like a Marvel villain or a Spider-Man villain that his whole thing is tornadoes. That he can create tornadoes. And I could be wrong. I could be thinking of a different character. But regardless, these two people are basically Storm at this point. We'll use Storm because that's the character I do know. Where they're like controlling, where they're like riding in these tornadoes and basically just running roughshod, man, crashing buildings, man. They are just creating absolute chaos. And in the guise of fun, as they're just like using these tornadoes and they like combine into one to make a massive tornado to just destroy buildings and whatnot, man. They are just absolutely running roughshod, man. And Kitty explains that these guys are the Butterfly Gang, and they're basically a bunch of thugs that are using this all as an excuse to run wild. As they continue on talking, she introduces herself as a reporter. As they continue onward, Kyrie tells them that they have to walk slowly. They can't make any sudden move because that'll create more whirlwinds and such. And then her brother says, "That's why we gotta creep along as slow as a snail." Which we got some decent character acting where he's like moves his body around, like really exaggerating his movements or like emphasize moves going slowly. Which obviously, which obviously as we know later on the episode, man, was some nice foreshadowing because as you guys know later on the episode, to jump ahead a bit, the kid gets turned into a snail, man, which was definitely a shock. I mean, I was like, damn, bro, her brother gets turned into a snail. But yeah, man, this episode's crazy. Anyway, they eventually reach the shelter, which is where they used to stay. This place is absolutely packed with people. One of the guys basically tells them to fuck off, that we're already full. Kitty says like, hey bro, we were living here before you guys, fuck you. And then, their parents are already there. Shinichi, Jesus Christ, man. Poor Shinichi, man. This man has been put through the ringer. This man looks done. This man looks dead. This man looks like he hasn't slept in days, man. I feel so bad for Shinichi. And shout out to Robbie Damon, who plays him in the dub, man. He was amazing this episode, man. He's been great throughout the entire series, but these last two episodes, he's really shy, man. His performance in these last two episodes have been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, man. So Shinichi is constantly muttering about how everyone's gone crazy. Everyone's gone crazy and all that jazz, man. They just throw him out there, which causes some whirlwind. Also, the motion capture footage looked a lot better this episode as well. I would say the motion capture footage was about on par with how it looked in episode 1, man. So, like I said, you could definitely tell the original team was back with this episode. Especially when we get to later on the episodes, man, we get to the big cut. Yeah, that looked amazing, but you could definitely tell that the original team was back working on this episode. Anyway, so they just start walking around trying to figure out where to find the next shelter is, and her dad doesn't, and they're talking about how do we get out of here, and their dad tells her that he doesn't want to leave. He needs clay from Dragonfly Pond to make more of his pottery in the art of the spirals, man. So by this point, man, the curse is completely taken over, and this dude is now one with the spirals, if you will, man. This man is completely lost cause by this point. As they continue on traversing, Chie finds some snail people, which we see a lot, which Kira mentioned there's been a lot more popping up. I was actually kind of surprised to see the snail people make a return, considering we didn't see them at all during episode 3. I thought that was just the snail people was a thing, we're done now, but no, the snail people were kind of like a big focus for this episode. And as they continue traversing, her little brother smells something good like meat's being cooked, and we find out the Butterfly Gang is straight up cooking the snail people and eating it, man. Now, genuine question, man. Does snail taste good? I am genuinely into snail. You guys follow me on Twitter. I believe I mentioned this in my reaction to the episode, which you guys know it came out a lot later. At least it's re-uploading right now because when I tried to upload the video originally while Toonami was still airing, I ended up getting copyright claim. The video got blocked worldwide, so I had to go back and re-edit it. Man, it's uploading right now, so hopefully this time it'll go through no problem and there won't be any issues. But anyway. I mentioned in there, man, that I was wondering, I was legitimately asking, does snail even taste good? And actually, somebody in my comments replied to my tweet saying, apparently the French do. So, I guess snail is something that the French like to eat, man. I don't know. I am not French. I cannot speak to this. If any of you guys have been to France or have ever tasted snail, please tell me what it tastes like in the description, in the comment section, because I'm curious if it all tastes good or not. But anyway, so they're just enjoying their style. And actually, fun fact in the dub, the leader of the Butterfly Gang is actually voiced by Kurt Thornton. And man is going full Yujiro Hama with the man. He sounded amazing. Anyway, so he's like, oh, you want some, little pretty girl? Why don't you join our gang? You can drink, you'll eat like queens. You know, he's trying to convince her, and obviously Kiryu don't want none of that smoke. So then the Butterfly Gang, they like fly off, or tornado off, whatever you want to call it. They end up taking Shinichi's, I believe it was his dad, with them in the tornadoes. A lot of them get caught up there. But Shuichi, man, comes in clutch and manages to grab Kirie and like hangs on to like a nearby pole to stop them from getting into the tornado. The Butterfly Gang tries to go back for them to finish them up, but they end up getting sucked into the wormhole. And now for the rest of the episode, Shinichi is just rocking a cape, and it's like never explained where he got it or why he's wearing one. But you know, who doesn't like capes, man? Capes are cool. They end up meeting another group of survivors, and they've also been struggling to find shelter and whatnot, man. They introduce themselves, and then it's revealed. Then as they continue onward, one of the guys talks about his back, and someone asks him to check his back. He checks, and then he has, of course, he's now starting to turn into a snail person. I also have to say, bro, the detailing on the snails, on the snail shells, when they're on the backs of people, man, the detailing looks spectacular, man. The drawings for whenever we got to see with him, when we were seeing with Kirie's brother, man, the detailing of them go great. They definitely look a lot better than the snail shells we saw in the second episode, because like I said, this was done by the original team. And seriously, man, the detailing, the shading, the texture, man, everything looks spectacular on the shells, man, when we saw them. So they eventually reached the shelter, and once again, you know, and also if you guys in the dub, actually one of the guys here was actually played by Kaji Tang, or KG Tang, I forgot how his name is pronounced. So yeah, it was pretty cool to hear him that. He sounded awesome. Anyway, they're trying to get in there. The guys are telling them to fuck off, that there's no room. They find that they try to open the door themselves. 3 heads then pop out there, and they just go... They huff and puff and they blow them away. The other guys retaliate, huffing and puffing, and they end up grabbing a log of wood to like bust down the door to get in there. And then we find out that due to the fact there being so many people crammed into this one space, and apparently even more people went in there when they weren't looking, they have straight up just like all entangled with one another into like this mangled creature, man. It was pretty freaky, man. They end up like spilling out from the outsides, from like the ends of the house, and then they start rebuilding it to cover themselves back up, man. So, yeah. Anyway, they continue on walking. They tell them they continue on walking around before they see, like, some, like, ships get taken over by the wormhole out of nowhere. They eventually try to eat with the remaining match they have, but, of course, they do not have enough to have enough to fill them. So one of the guys said, like, look, there's some meat here. And then we find out that was actually snail meat. That is what it was, man. That was snail meat that and I think by this point they've already switched over to the name Dragonfly. By this point, they like changed it from the Butterfly Gang to then they're like, no, we're the Dragonfly Gang. Whatever, bro. Anyway, they find some meat left by that they assume to be left by them, and they just start going to town this food, man. Kirie is obviously apprehensive of eating snail meat that was once human, but then she sees that Shinichi, man, is just chomping down on this shit like there's no tomorrow, bruh. And she eventually, like, we don't see her, but she like reaches for it, which makes us think that she did indeed eat the snail meat. We then cut to them walking. They find their brother, and we find their mom was taken over by the whirlwind. She ends up checking. And then you know, when they pull him out there, man, the reporter mentions that to check his back, and of course we see him that he too is turning into a snail person. Like I said, man, the detailing on the shell is fucking incredible, man. It looks amazing. So they continue on walking. They end up finding one of the survivors they met previously. He's like building a new row house as a shelter, and you know he says like, oh, I think I'll be back by the time you guys get back. They continue on driving or continue walking down. They look like to be going up to where the school is and continuing forward to the mountain area where they are met by another group of survivors. Eventually, they meet up with a new crew of people who I think might be one of Chie's like co-workers from the news truck that got separated. I'm not sure. For some reason, they have a dude on a leash. Obviously, we learned he turns into a snail, so maybe he was a snail person. They were just kind of leashing him just until he transforms or something. Never really is explained, but he transforms soon after. And one of the guys like, "Oh, how should we? Let's eat him raw." And the dude grabs a knife out of his back. The snail retreats into its shell, and it's like, "Damn it, he went into a shell." And one of the guys ready to break it open. He's like, "No, don't you know there's insects or bugs?" And they said it was either insects or bugs that eat snails, and then literally crawls into his shell and just starts eating them. Like, he just raw dogging that shit, crawling in there, man. And you know, the man was getting in there deep, bruh. The tail starts spinning around. You know, man was really trying to get in there to make sure that he made sure he got every last bit of that goddamn snail, bruh. He made sure there was nothing left but the goddamn shell itself, man. Eventually, they managed to pull him out there, and Kitty and the crew, they just ditch him. They're like, "You know what, bruh? We don't want none of this." Shinichi talks about them being cursed by the spiral. So they keep walking. They end up finding a tree stump. Chie says that you can check where you can see where north is from the tree stump. They go check it, and now Shinichi is starting to see hallucinations of his father in spirals. They meet up with the previous crew once again. They start to notice his back They start to notice his back. They're like, "Oh, you know what's going on? Let me grab him." Shinichi grabs him, and then soon after he transforms into a snail. They run over to a cliff. Shinichi and Kirie asks his brother Mitsuo if he can crawl down the cliff. He just goes, "Mm." And I guess to her, I don't know if she speaks snail or she was just like, "Fuck it, I hope that's a yes," and sends him off his way to run away and go down the cliff, which he takes a sweet ass time doing it, but he eventually does get down there, and she says that she'll come back for him. They meet up with the crew again. They start salivating at the thought of eating another snail. About how do you want to eat? "Oh yeah, man, we're gonna eat it raw, dog." And they just start twisting and contorting into spirals once again. And then they eventually make it back over to the town. By this point, it is almost completely the row house is now almost completely in the shape of a spiral. There's still little bits of it that they haven't fully connected yet, but it's more or less now in the shape of a spiral. Eventually, as they get in there, man. Which we also get to see some overview of the way of the same looks. And if you pay attention, it does look like it is in the shape of a spiral. The town's kind of in this circular shape, so it definitely does kind of look like reminiscent of a spiral. She eventually meets up with one of the guys that we saw earlier on the episode. This time we learned that it's been years at this point, man. Man's got a full-on beard now, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's been years since we last saw you." And Kitty asks if he's at all seen any of his parents or of her parents anywhere, and he mentioned that there was a couple that does pottery by the Dragonfly Lake, and so they assume that that's obviously Kitty's, because I mean, who the fuck else is talking about doing pottery that won't show about spirals? You know what I mean? So it's obviously got to be that. So she rushes over to them. The dude mentions how they'll be right there getting real close to it, and that he has never seen Dragonfly Lake. So eventually, as they work through this maze, we see them talking over once again, wondering about how this even happened. Shinichi thinks this is something that's already happened before, and history is just repeating itself. Like that, that the curse is just an ever going cycle. That every century or so they come back and the curse comes down on them. They form into a spiral. They do the row house thing, and then eventually it all disintegrates or whatever, and the cycle resets. She wonders how there hasn't been any communication with any of this man or any history of this, and he assumes, like I said before, that more like everyone involved in this one had already perished, died, or something happens from them learning the history of this place and the curse of the spiral. They then see someone being cremated into the sky, and they go rushing towards it. They eventually get in there, but she ends up getting stuck while they're building it and gets sealed away in the row house, man. Everyone in the row house rejoices that they're now finally all connected as they continue on their trek. They eventually finally reach the row house, man, and start climbing down the stairs. Literally, when we see the Dragonfly Lake, it's like this giant hole in the center of the town, man. This literally looks like some shit out of Made in Abyss. With the Abyss, man. Like, y'all cannot tell me that this does not remind you of Made in Abyss, man. Like, I saw something like, what is this, Made in Abyss? So they eventually go in there. Kiryu was about to go there down by herself, but Shinichi goes with her. This is when we get to the animation highlight of the episode, man. Hell, this might be the animation highlight of this series, man. This cut looked fucking beautiful, man. I don't know who animated this. I hope Sakuga Blog does has like an Uzumaki page. I haven't checked if they do or not, but I would love to know who the animator was that worked on this scene, because this cut looked absolutely just beautiful. The detailing of the key animation, the clothing of the man was way more detailed than it has been before. It looks spectacular. So they continue on going downward. There's ended up being someone that's already been like turned into spirals by that point. He's talking some shit, and Kirei just wants to leave him go, and he ends up biting her leg. Kirei tries to shake him off and let him go, but Shinichi ends up falling down the stairwell with the dude. And this is when we get to the shot that's literally just a still frame. It is literally just a singular drawing of them like falling, and it's just moving them down. There's like no animation, there's like the hair ain't moving, nothing. It is literally just a still drawing. And like, listen, man, I'm not gonna hold it too against it. This episode's looked amazing throughout the rest of them. That one little blemish cut where they like cut corners where it's just one still frame, does it kind of stick out? Yes, especially after a cut that looks this good. It does stick out a bit, but like, it's short. It don't really mean much, and it is just them falling. So I'm not gonna give the team too much shit. And we already know about the production issues that Uzumaki faced, man. Like, we already know the options, and like they said, one of the options was just release it as it is with warts and all. This was definitely one of those warts. But anyway, still an amazing cut, regardless, minus a little blemish at the end with Shinichi falling. Kirei finally manages to get down there, and she ends up falling down the stairwell and finally reaches the ground of where this area is. We see this giant, spiral structure. There's like these video feedback effects where it goes in, where the screen like pulses to white. It looks pretty cool, man. I kind of like the look of this. Anyway, she eventually finds her parents. They have been seemingly turned to stone. It's kind of hard to tell, but they're dead. She cries about it, then she finds Shinichi. Shinichi tells her to get out of here. He says he doesn't have the strength left to fight the spiral curse. She says she also doesn't have the strength to fight the spiral curse. They like grab hands together, turn into a spiral, and are now together. Honestly, thought they were gonna kiss here, man. But no, once again, no such kiss ever happened, man. Kind of surprising, too. Like, I feel like the whole thing about connected spiral would have mean they would have kissed or something to be like truly connected, but whatever. Anyway, then we see the structure, this like drill structure, start going up until the top, till it reaches the top of where the lake was, and now finally the spiral is complete, and the curse has now officially run its course. We then get a post-credits scene after the credits, where we get Kirei narration saying, wondering that now that the history seems to repeat itself, it's now back to where it was at the start of the first episode. She hoping maybe this time they will not have to deal with the curse anymore. Once again, we see a couple, perhaps I'm assuming, pick like her boyfriend's picking up her girlfriend from the train station, and they're walking away, wondering on top of like maybe they should leave town. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where Uzumaki ends, man. Hell of an episode, man. You could definitely tell the original team was back at it again for this final episode, man. Great art animation for most of it, man. Besides that one little blemish right there with the Shinichi falling, man. This was a spectacular episode from start to finish, man. Overall, guys, I'm going to give this episode a 9.5 out of 10, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you do. Follow me until you feel like it. Links are below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.